What is up, and welcome back to the CKM Red Rugby League channel. Hope you are all well. It is another glorious Tuesday, which means that we are back to go through all the team lists, all the team news. As ever, joining me is the wonderful Luke Jobson. How are you going, mate?
We're managing. Oh, gee whiz. Nearly got the frog in the throat real early there. But we're managing. We're surviving. It's week 6, I think, of lockdown. Day 40-something. I don't know. It's all coming together, but I'm bloody glad we had some rugby league on the weekend, mate. How are you?
I am very well, mate. I am looking forward to getting into these. Some changes, a few positional switch-ups, a couple of big calls to make on this week's games as the season starts to come into that final push. As ever, we are representing Red Star, rocking the Red Star merchandise. The way that this usually works for anyone joining us for the first time is we will go through all the games in chronological order, and if there are any games that you have missed, you can catch them all on Recast, our streaming partner. So for the individual previews, if you've not got time to stick around and watch them all, or you're just taking a particular interest in your team, head over to our Recast page, join us there. It is a great time. With that, we'll jump straight into game one, and that is the Knights versus the Broncos. And for the Knights, the inclusion of Mitchell Pearce will be a huge bump to their playing stock as they hope to knock off the Broncos. He comes into the 7, which means that Crossland drops into the reserves. The bench remains unchanged. Sue, Clement, King and Jones, that familiar 15, 16, 17 and 14 as well, for those of us that can count, me myself not included. And Randall comes into the 9. No Brayley this week. He'll be a huge loss for the Knights there. Over to the Broncos, and the obvious big loss for them is the absence of Tony Staggs in the centres. He's gone for the season. Another knee injury, unfortunately, hampering him. It's a real shame to see him go. The Broncos are a far better side with him than they are without him. So Arthurs will take that 3 shirt off his back and try and stake a claim to it. Levi replaces Turpin in the 9. And then as for the forwards are unchanged. So it's Palacia, Haas, Glenn, Ricky and Hetherington. Xavier Willison, congratulations to him. He'll make his debut this Thursday for this game. He'll be in the 14 shirt, and then it's Kennedy, Bullimore and Rabati. Looking to the reserves, it is Mead, Kelly, Milford and Coates. This one is straight off the bat a tough one to call for me. I think that the Broncos have been more improved. I think the Knights have looked shaky in spots, but I think having someone like Mitchell Pearce to steer some of those old heads, some of those young boys around, and really control those old heads in the forwards. Watson in the 13, Ponga in that 1 shirt. And news has just come out as well that he'll be given the captaincy nod and given a leadership role. So Kalen Ponga has got to impress in this one. He has to. So I'm immediately leaning more towards the Broncos than I am the Knights in this one, and that is rare for me in two weeks in a row.
You what, mate? I just want to. You've gone and said that Mitchell Pearce is back. You've gone and said that Kalen Ponga will have to perform with him, gaining the captaincy due to Brayley being rested. Yeah. You've mentioned that Tony Staggs is not there this week, and you lean the Broncos.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me tell you how this is going to work. Let me tell you what's going to happen here, because they do get a former representative halfback into their squad. Do the Knights? They have a captain for the first time, who is their knight in shining armor. No pun intended. Yes, you have Chris Randall, who is so-so, has not seen much game time at all this year, but could work with Connor Watson and play 40 minutes, 20 to start, 20 to finish. Watson comes on for him initially, and then it'll be Watson into the 13 at the end of the game. And the Broncos lose one of their biggest attacking threats. They lose someone who has a short kicking game. They lose someone who has a great passing game, who is incredibly strong from close range. And they put in Jesse Arthurs, who is a fine player. Do not get me wrong. He's a fine player, but he's not Tony Staggs. He's just not. It's Knights. It's 13 plus for me. Bradman Best scores a double.
Okay, you're straight out the gates with that one. Okay, I think the reason I lean the Broncos is this: you've got Croft, who's now out to impress because he's been told today/last night that he's not going to be at the Broncos next year. He's currently been shopped to Super League sides. He's been offered to a few clubs. A few clubs are currently taking interest. It is in his best interest to play out of his skin for the remainder of this season, knowing that his season may only be another 5 or 6 games long because the Broncos are likely to miss out on a final spot. So it's in his best interest to play well. Danny Levi, exactly the same. Danny Levi is currently linked with, it escapes me, Huddersfield, the Huddersfield Giants in Super League.
Wasn't he linked with as well? As well as Stone?
Potentially. He's been linked with a few clubs, but Danny Levi is currently being shopped to Super League, and he's currently being offered to the Huddersfield Giants, and it's rumoured that the Huddersfield Giants have taken an interest and that they will be looking at taking him on a long-term deal, which is not bad considering that he's 25. It is in Danny Levi's best interest to impress. Corey Oates found himself on the outer with Xavier Coates going to the Melbourne Storm. Oates has a chance of earning that wing spot back. Tessie New is still in dire need of a contract. There are too many players in this Broncos side with too much to prove and too much to lose. And that's why I think that if the Knights do win this one, it's 1-12. But I'm leaning towards the Broncos. I'm going to go Broncos 1-12. I'm going to think that this one's a bit of a high-scoring game. I think that both of these sides are defensively a little bit rough in spots. You know, the Knights do not have the best defensive record. Exactly the same for the Broncos. The Broncos do have points in them. We saw them run up 30 plus against the Cowboys last week in that Queensland derby. I mean, you go to the points scored by the Knights, 325, points scored by the Broncos, 331, points conceded by the Knights, 472, Broncos 578. These are not watertight teams. There's going to be points in this one, and I think that the Broncos have got more to lose than the individuals in the Knights. So that's why I'm going to go with that. I think that Gamble is still trying to get a leadership spot at the Broncos as well. So I think that he's going to have a big game. So I'm going to say Gamble anytime, Oates anytime, and Broncos 1-12 are my tips for this one.
I don't mind Gamble. He is a good player. He's a ball-running player. He plays right-hand side for the Broncos, which I believe is left for No, that'll be Bradman Best. Oh, if Gamble does score, it's going to be cutting back in. It's going to be something like a second phase play, potentially sees a breakdown, right-hand side, has to come back, and the Knights don't have that cohesive slide. We saw that last week, but I still think 13 plus. Yeah, you're putting Herbie against Bradman. It's a tough battle, but I think Bradman gets up there. Hence the double. I think he's just too strong. The more I think about it, the more I think as well for just the whole right side for Newcastle for any time, which I believe will be Kurtman and Tuwala.
Yes.
Hunt, sorry.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, Tuwala scored a Hattie last week on the left-hand side. Kurtman 240, I think that's a bit of value there. Hunt 162, not so much, but worth a shout. Still going Knights 13 plus. Still, I'll hedge my bet a little bit. I know I went outright and said Bradman Best. Let me pull that back a bit. I'll be a little bit calmer. Bradman Best and or Kurtman double.
Okay. We'll get off that one then, and we will go to the Raiders versus the Dragons. Small changes for the Raiders, more so for the Dragons. We'll get onto the Dragons in just a second, but it is Rapana in the one, Valamir switching wings. Croker is in the left centre and will be partnering Valamir on that side. Tomoko comes into the side and Smith Shields is swapping wings. And then it is the halves pairing of Whiten and Williams. Papali and Hodgson, Papali and Tapane will be your props with Hodgson at the 9. Then it is Young and Whitehead in the second row and Sutton in the 13. Looking to the bench, it is Starling, Harawira-Nara, Gula and Anderson. Going to the reserves, it's Soliola, Louis, Frawley and Havili. So the Raiders have got plenty of depth available on the bench if they want to use it. As for the Dragons, mass changes. Dufty is snubbed once more, so Jack Bird will play his 4th position this season as he goes to fullback. Fige keeps his spot on the wing with Ravalawa coming back in on the other side. Ramsey and Lomax are welcome inclusions for the Dragon. Norman moves from centre into the 6, and Clune is in the 7 with Ben Hunt gone. And then it is Laurie and Maguire in the props with McCulloch in the 9. Burns and Sims make up your second row with DeBellin in the 13, and then going to the bench, it is Amon, Ford, Hunt, and Ellis with the reserves Dufty, Famasili, Sullivan, and Alvaro. I'm going to immediately jump in here. I'm going to say Raiders 13+. The Raiders are on a fine run of form. They are looking far better than the side that started this season, despite the fact that they're potentially not running their strongest side. You know, they're using Rapana as a makeshift fullback because there's no Nickel Clockstad. You've got Harawira Nara demoted to the bench because of how well Hudson Young's playing, and you need to slot him in somewhere. Starling is biting at the bit, trying to get Hodgson out of that 9 shirt, and Hodgson's not giving it up in a hurry. Valamere's not playing awfully. Smith Shields is staking his spot, a claim to his wing spot. There's just the Dragons, again, too many changes. You got Bird in the 1, Norman in the 6, Clune in the 7, McCulloch in the 9. The only player that's the 2 players that have played the majority of the season in those spots, and that's McCulloch and Norman. When you play with an unfamiliar spine, mistakes tend to happen. Errors start to look a little. They start to creep into the game, and players look a little bit clunky. Yes, they get Ramsey and Lomax, who are absolute guns in the centre, but we've seen that Ramsey is a far better winger than he is a centre. At centre, he can be a little bit defensively suspect because when you play a lot of wing, you tend to think that the man outside you is actually just a touchline, and you can mark up that way. So Ramsey has a bit of a tendency to turn his hips, come in, and start trying to put tackles on that way. So I'm leaning towards Tomoko going over from there because I think if Ramsey bites in, he potentially pulls in Fige with him. Fige's not played a great deal of NRL either. So that edge pairing is probably your weak point, and the Raiders will recognise that. So Tomoko and Smith Shields, I'm expecting that one of those 2 will definitely get over in that one, but I'm going to say Tomoko just based on the Ramsey logic. But I think the Raiders are going to run up a bit of a score here. Based on the mass changes at the Dragons and how poorly they've played, I've not seen the Dragons run home, but I'm going to make a bold shout that the Dragons probably win 1 of their last 6 because they're not making the finals.
I really want to reach through this camera and pin you up against that door and just be like, stealing picks. You so much.
Because it's blatantly obvious.
I know it's obvious. Keeping it PG. No words. We're going to save that for a later date. Maybe. I'm going to go right out the back on some value and say Josh Papali'i, anytime try scorer. He got one 2 weeks ago, I believe it was, when he copped one in the back. Was it 2 weeks ago or last week? I think it was 2 weeks ago. He's just a strong ball running forward. He's back in the starting side. It's not going to be a big rotation for him. You've got Harawira Naira on the bench, who likely comes on for Hudson Young or Ryan Sutton. You've got Gula, who's a prop, but he'll come on for Tarpey. Anderson, I don't know a lot about. No. He's got a lot of promise, and I do believe he's a ball runner. But I'm going to assume he's going to be a front row rotation. And Tommy Starling, obviously, he'll likely come on for Hodgson later on, or come on for a forward, and Hodgson will go into the 13. 13 plus Raiders, it's the easy tip. You can't not go past it, I think. It's just a blatantly obvious tip. It's a good shout. the Dragons missing the 8. I don't mind that. Parramatta. There are 3 things that are certain in life: death, Parramatta stringing along their fans, and the Dragons having a real bad last 6 weeks. I can say this as a Parramatta fan. This year has sucked. I think Dragons do miss the 8. I think that you can get a little bit of value on that too if I go into our Sportsbet futures. Oh, to miss the 8, $1.10. It's interest, bank interest. I think, Raiders 13 plus. Papali'i anytime. I don't mind Rapana anytime as well, sweeping around the back. Those are probably my tips. Tomoko, yes, as well too, but also screw you, Matthew.
But the Dragons are just there's too many changes for me. Belling back in the 13 is a massive boost, but the mass changes. You got Maguire, who's always good for a penalty in the 10 shirt as well. I don't see the Dragons getting anywhere close in this one. I reckon the Raiders. Do you know what? Throw in the over on my tip as well. Dragons, Raiders 13 plus. Tomoko anytime and back the over because I think that the Raiders run up a decent scoreline here.
All right.
Right then, we'll get on to one that I'm sure me and Luke are going to argue about. It is the Eels versus the Rabbitohs. Straight away, looking to the Eels, their changes. Not a great deal. Mahoney still in that 9 shirt. Kafusi replaces Regan Campbell-Gillard in the 8 shirt. He will be missing this week. Other than that, no real changes to report. Mitch Moses in the 7 shirt. Mitch Moses in the 7 shirt.
Oh, you're sacked. I'm taking over this game. No real changes, Matthew. It's graceful.
Bite.
Dino, I agree with you,
We
mate.
got an easy biter.
Absolutely agree with you, Pat, mate. Up the Eels. Go, Dino. Love your work,
Mitch Moses is the welcome inclusion back in the 7 shirt for the Eels. Kafusi replaces Regan Campbell-Gillard in that 8 shirt. Other than that, no changes. You look to the reserves. It is Dunster, Stone, Arthur, and Makatoa. More changes, though, at the Rabbitohs, and that is Milne coming in the 4 shirt. Obviously, no Campbell Graham this week. The welcome return of Cameron Murray as well in that 13. So Arrow moves from the 13 shirt back into the second row with Sewer going to the bench. He'll be wearing the 17 this week. And a welcome back as well for Benji Marshall, who knocks Blake Taff down to the reserves. So big switch up there for the Rabbitohs as they look to knock the Eels off. I'm immediately going to jump on Rabbitohs 1-12. And I know that Luke probably agrees with me, and as much as he hates to. And the logic is this. The Eels have capitulated at the back end of this year. Not a clue why, but it just seems that they are doing whatever they can to make sure that they're not a top 4 side. Gus Gould said it a few weeks ago. The Eels win games that they should win convincingly, and they lose games that they need to win narrowly. And that's fact. The Eels, for whatever reason, when it comes to playing other top 4 sides or team, even top 6 sides, they tend to struggle. It's just not clicking. You saw Gutherson get a little bit carried away last week, blowing up at Opacek. You saw, errors. You saw people hitting the wrong holes. Yes, you've got that familiar house pairing of Brown and Moses back to running the show, and that is only going to make life easier for the Eels. But they're coming up against a Rabbitohs side who, towards the back end of this season, in fact, no, throughout the course of this season, have just been consistently strong. If there's one thing you can give the Rabbitohs credit for, is that they've been consistent. Through injuries, through spine changes, through rotations, they have remained consistent. And, to have the liberty of swapping someone like Benji Marshall in and out of your side is just, it's a brilliant commodity to have. And I think that that could be the big difference maker in this game. I know that Mitch Moses back from injury will boost the Eels and that it'll make them better through the middle. But when you're losing someone like Regan Campbell-Gillard, who makes up a large amount of your meters, who is strong on the carry, always good for an offload, it means that you potentially lose a large aspect of your game there, and it's a real problem for the Eels.
I really don't want to talk to you right now. As painful as it is to say it, I don't want to, but I'm almost tempted to go Bunnies 13 plus. Dino, please don't hate us. Here's the thing. We suck right now. And yeah, part of that was that Mitch Moses was not in the squad. There is no doubt about it. Look at the viewership, Matthew. Look at the viewership go up. They know I'm dying inside talking about Parramatta. They want to see me suffer. Dino doesn't like any of us. That's fine, mate. We completely understand. I'm a Parramatta fan, Dean. Just know it hurts me a lot more than you think it does. I am very, very worried, even with Mitch Moses back. I am very worried that we're not going to be able to stem the block plays out the back to Cody and Latrell. Now, we saw last week that some of those block plays, instead of it being a Cody to Latrell, it was a Cody to Dane Gagai. And Latrell kind of just put himself in where he thought he needed to. And when he didn't need to on the left-hand side, Gagai played fullback. And it worked. And it worked real well. Sauce got a double. Gagai was close on numerous times. And it meant that who did they play? The Tigers?
The Bunnies played the Dragons.
Dragons, thank you. Dragons didn't know whether it was going to be Cody, whether it was going to be Latrell, whether it was going to be a short ball from Reynolds to Kuloa Matangi. They opened up that option. Our edge defense at the best of times is borderline top 8. Borderline top 8. Moses brings the attack back that we need. Defensively, we are really, really bad. So I'm going 13 plus. I am going 13 plus. I'm going Latrell anytime. I'm going Josh Mansour anytime. Mansour goes up against Fergo. Fergo jams in. And he jams in hard. It will work at points. Don't get me wrong. Fergo will save 2 tries by jamming in. But he's going to let one go. And the Sauce is going to go over. Bunnies 13 plus. Latrell. Mansour. Oh, that hurts. That hurts my heart. I'll give Para this. They're not going to get duck-egged again. And if someone is going to score, it's going to be Papali'i up against Jai Arrow, who is gone from his days of being an edge back rower. He's now a prop or lock, not a ball playing lock at that either, a ball running lock. I don't think that Arrow will defensively stand up against Isaiah Papali'i, and that will be where Parramatta gets their points. It will be Moses either, faking out the back to Gutson and going short to Big Puppy, or it's going to be a second phase. But Sauce, Mitchell, you can throw Papali'i in there if you want. Bunnies 13 plus. Oh, Dino, are you offering that to us, mate, or are you saying that's what you're going to put on?
You're a brave man, Dean. You're a very brave man.
I don't get paid enough to do this, to put that wager on, Matty. I'm going to leave that to you, mate. 100 quid.
Yeah.
What people talk to Dean's people?
So, my line of thinking for this one is that Gary tends to agree. The problem with the Rabbitohs have got is that they are susceptible to conceding points. we saw it against the Dragons last week. The Dragons are not the best attacking side. We went over their stats, but the Rabbitohs were still allowing the Dragons to score points because the Rabbitohs know that they will score more points. I mean, they don't have to perform well; they just have to perform better than the other team, and that's kind of their line of thinking right now. So, with that logic, I'm going to say that Sevo goes over for the Eels. I think that those block plays that we talked about, the Rabbitohs' goal line defense is very susceptible to points, especially on the edges. The Eels and the Rabbitohs share the same Achilles heel. They're both very good on the go forward, but defensively on the edges, they suffer. So I'm going to say Sevo, who comes up as the numbers line up against Milne and Paulo. I think that Milne's played a lot of wing, so again, he's going to bite in. He's going to leave Paulo exposed, and Sevo versus Paulo is a bit of a no contest in terms of just sheer massive human beings. So I'm going to say Sevo goes over. I'm going to say take the over on this one. As we said there, plenty of points. Back the over, and I'm going to go for a Rabbitohs try scorer. I'm going to go Walker. I think that Cody Walker probably slips up the middle. I think that those edge plays and those block plays will probably catch the Eels over committing and over sliding. It's just going to give Walker that opportunity to sell a dummy, send someone to the shop. They come back with milk, bread, and eggs, and Walker goes over for 4 points.
Interesting way to put it. Hopefully, it doesn't bring back the cigarettes from reserve grade as well. I'll throw this thought in, and then we'll move on because Dino already hates us as it is. He's probably blocked us all, unsubscribed, liked.
We're off the Christmas card list.
Here we go. Eels have had a rude shock. They'll bring out the start of the season. If they don't win, I'll throw $50 to your cause. Upset of the round. All right, here we go. You know what? I'll jump in on this. Dino, give me a charity, mate. Give me a charity. If Parramatta wins, I'll throw $50 to a charity of your choice. If the Bunnies win, you've got to throw $50 to a charity of my choice. I'll lay that ledger out to you, mate. The thought I'm gonna provide, you can, more than welcome, Matty, to chop that one down and post it. House with no steps, done. All right, I've got to think of a charity now. House with no steps. Okay. This is me. This is me taking it down. What's your last name? Dean Wales. House with no steps. Let's see. Let's go for a charity. I'm in Sydney. We're in lockdown. A lot of people are struggling. I think that there's no better time right now than to support Beyond Blue. Help provide info for anxiety, depression, suicide prevention. It's a tough time at the moment for a lot of people. That's my charity, mate. Beyond Blue. $50 to them. If the Bunnies win, if Parramatta wins, I'll throw $50 to House with no steps. Feel free to message the page as well, so we can keep track of this one.
Okay, that'd be interesting. Make sure that you stay posted and see how that one unfolds. Dean, I'd start getting your account ready, mate.
One blue, Dano, $50.
Okay, then. With that, then we will jump to the next game. It is the Warriors versus the Sharks. For the Warriors, a few changes to report. Hiku is out of the 6 and into the 3. Valia comes into the centre, with Ewan Aitken moving to the second row. A welcome return to Chanel Harris-Tavita as well, who will be out in the 6 shirt, partnering O'Sullivan in the 7. Adam Fanua-Blake and Matt Lodge will make up the props as they both come back from injury. Tavunga in the 9. And then it is Aitken and Curran, with Sirenen in the 13, and Nikarima, Afoa, Evans, and Katoa making up the bench. Over to the reserves, it is Jermaine Tanoa-Brown, Corsi, Murchie, and Pompey making up the remainder of the reserves. For the Sharks, very few changes to report. They will see Toby Rudolph bumped back into that 8 shirt. You said it last week, Luke. Rudolph looks far more of a threat in the 8 than he did in the 13. So Williams will go into that 13 shirt with Hamlin, Uele, Hunt, Tolman moving to the bench, and Fafita making up the remainder of that bench. And the reserves, Lua, Metcalf, Magulius, and Moylan making up the remainder of the reserves. I'm going for the Warriors on this one. They had absolutely no right to beat the Tigers last week. We had them dead to rights, and they turn up. And granted, the Tigers played awfully. The Tigers were not great, but this Warriors side, no matter who they chop and change and who they put out, just seems to consistently cause problems when it comes to tipping for and against them. But I absolutely love the Warriors. I love everything that they do, and I'm going to say Warriors for this one. I know that they've not beaten the Sharks in their last 2. Both sides potentially trying to push for that 8. The Sharks are higher up the table at the minute, will be the favourites going into this one, but that Tracy Trindle combination in the 6 and 7 doesn't fill me with the greatest of confidence. The Warriors welcoming back Harris Tavita. Yes, he partners O'Sullivan in the halves for the first time for the first time ever, I believe, actually. But I'm going to lean towards the Warriors. I think that forward pack is very, very dangerous. They've got Nikorima in the 14, comes in, provides a spark, can create issues wherever you use him. I wouldn't be dead against seeing Tavonga coming out of the 9 and Nikorima going into that 9 shirt as an interchange through the course of the game. Would not be dead against it. I think that he's a nimble player, low to the ground, good centre of gravity. He will just cause issues for those bigger Sharks forwards. I've got to say I'm surprised to see Aitken in the 11 when you've got Murchie there on the bench, in the reserve, and to Noah Brown as well. Again, we don't get paid to pick players. We just go through this. But the Sharks have got a job on their hands for me. I see them struggling in this one. I think it will be a tight, low-scoring game. You go to 22-14 and 20 points to 12. Just a little over a month ago at this point. I see it being low-scoring. I see neither side hitting 30 points. I see the Warriors winning this one 1-12.
Ooh, Warriors 1-12, Matthew. Warriors 1-12. I agree to disagree. It's like I'm in a fun sort of mood right now. I'm quite happy that Dino and I have got that on. But back to the matters at hand. That'll be something for Friday night. Reece Walsh v. William Kennedy is going to be a very mouth-watering battle. That is English, Mr. Jobson. A very tasty battle. Kennedy, I think, is one of the more, if not the most underrated player this year. He has been superb for the Sharks. He has not put many feet wrong, if any, at the back there for Cronulla. The Sharkies do get back Jesse Ramian. He's going to be running up against Peter Hiku. That is mouth-watering in itself. That is a very tough battle. I wouldn't be surprised if Wateni Selesniak goes over, even though I am going Sharks 1-12. I think he'll just get the jump over Ronaldo and get one over him. I wouldn't necessarily be surprised. And I did see something on Twitter. And I thought that it's not going to happen, but yeah, as an individual bet, it's a shot. And the thing that was said was Toby Rudolph first tries to Braden Hamlin ULA anytime. Now, that as a multi will not happen. I'll throw another $50 to house with no steps if that happens. But I will say Toby Rudolph anytime. I think Toby is a big shout. Scored 2 weeks ago, and it was just a straight run down the guts from close range, and he barreled over. If on the Warriors will crash and burn, yeah, completely agree. The Warriors are a momentum-based side. They're a confidence-based side. If they get up early, they play expansive football. If they don't, if they're coming from behind, they require pieces of brilliance from individual players. And that spine does not scream individual brilliance bar Reece Walsh. I don't expect Harris Tavita to be fantastic for his first game back in about 3 months. So I don't mind. Anyways, I don't mind Toby Rudolph. It wouldn't surprise me if he goes over from close range. The Warriors' close defense isn't great. Talakai going up against Aitken is another one that screams a bit of value for me. Aitken did play very well at second row last week. He's done well enough to keep Eli Katoa on the bench. Heaven forbid. But Talakai is a very strong ball runner. Aitken was not known to be the greatest of defenders whilst playing in the centers at the Dragons and, yeah, prior to his injury for the Warriors. Don't know how that's going to go. Could also say the same for Raymond v. Hiku. Looking at the Warriors, I think Reece Walsh is the man to be that spark to get them over. I guarantee, has to score, I think, if the Warriors are going to win this. But in terms of the bet, I'm going to throw Rudolph there anytime as an official pick. I'm going Sharkies 1-12. Talakai anytime as well.
Okay. I'm going to throw one that's a little bit out there. So if I'm going to say my dead certs, I'm going to go Warriors 1-12. I'm going to say back the under. As we said before, 22-14, 20 points to 12, I think they were. Low-scoring games. Both these sides have the potentials for errors that can really slow a game down. I do agree with Dean. I think that if the Sharks do manage to post some early points, that potentially the Warriors will fall apart. But I'm going to say Lodge anytime. I think that this game's going to be won and lost up the middle. Both these sides have got dominant packs. Both these sides like to play up the middle and use that brute force. The Warriors are not a brilliant edge team. The Sharks have potentially the slightly better edges. You know, Katoa versus Wateni Zelezniak, you take Katoa. Chambers against Hiku, you take Hiku in that one. Ramian versus Valia, you take Ramian. Mulatalo versus Montoya, you take Mulatalo. The Warriors are not going to play this one on the edges. They're going to go up the middle, which means that if Lodge gets close to the line, big body, there's a potential that he crashes over on a short ball. And as we said, with it being low scoring, most of your low scoring games are played up the middle. Most of your free flowing, expansive, high scoring games, you get your backs much more involved. The backs will be used for exit sets and more so than anything than that. It's going to be won and lost up the middle. I think the Warriors pack potentially is a stronger one. And I'm going to go, Warriors 1-12. I'm going to go back the under and Matt Lodge anytime. Very out there call, but there we go.
Do we know the last time that we went to props anytime try scorers?
Never happened. Blue Moon stuff.
Hey, look, I'll give you this. Rudolph and Woods are both in the top 10 for missed tackles in the competition. If there's a week that the Warriors forward's going to go over, it's this week.
Okay. Sound logic then. And we will go to the Roosters versus the Panthers. And for the Roosters, it will be good news for them. Jared Waerea-Hargreaves has faced the judiciary and they have decided to overturn what would have been a suspension. So Waerea-Hargreaves is free to play. Copley will come in on the wing to make his debut for the Roosters. Kieran moves from the 4 into the 3 with Manu going back into the centre. And then it is the familiar bench of Lamb, Butcher, Takiaho. And then the reserves are unchanged as well with Marshgate, Baker, Graham Tafoa and White. Look to the Panthers, though, and it is a very makeshift Panthers side. Obviously, no Stephen Crichton this week. He will be a huge loss for them. So it is Edwards, Staines, Momorovsky, Capewell, and Naden that make up your back five. Momirovski not playing a great deal of ball this year, and Capewell, yes, he's an origin centre, but he's not an NRL centre. Not played a great deal of club football there. Burton into the 6 with Luai in the 7. Coruscant returns and bumps Kenny into the 14. And then there is the inclusion of Tavita Pangai Jr. as well in the 15. Yo is back in the 13. And Leniu and Eisenhoof make up the remainder of the bench. And then looking down to the reserves, there is a familiar name in there. In the 21 shirt, it is Nathan Cleary, who will be running on a late fitness test to deem whether he is well enough to play in this one and what a boost he would be to the Panthers if he was to come back. But I'm going to go Roosters 13 plus here. The Panthers were shot to bits by the Storm last week. Yes, this is a Storm side who are historically now one of the best sides ever in the NRL, with the fact that they brought up the highest points differential of any team since, I think it was 1935. I think that record has stood since, and the Storm have now shattered that. Doing it against the Panthers as well is a huge statement. How the Panthers may line up, I see if Cleary makes fitness, you see Luai go back to the 6, Cleary into the 7, and then it's flip a coin between Capewell and Momirovski, who falls out for Burton. I can't see Tyrone May making any more appearances. I mean, May was your centre of choice at one point to fill those gaps. Not anymore. Times have changed. He's very much so on the outer at the Panthers now. As for the Roosters, they are still looking absolutely fantastic. Their halves pairing is just going from strength to strength. 2 young halves that are really clicking. Tedesco, I could see having a field day if Capewell stays in the centre. Capewell knows what to expect from Tedesco because obviously he had to defend those edges when it came to the Blues and the Maroons. But Tedesco against Capewell's going to have some problems. Kieran's done a job in the centre. Tupou's ever reliable. Manu, quality in the air, and now he's got Copley outside him. Copley's he's a serviceable winger. He's not played a great deal, but if there's one thing that we like to see, it's players given a chance and they stand up and they impress, and I can see Copley maybe doing that. So I'm going to say Copley anytime, Roosters 13 plus. I'm going to think that the Panthers don't score any more than 20 in this one.
Well, don't we have a dilemma?
That we do.
Cleary plays Panthers 1-12. If Cleary does not, Roosters 13 plus. Cleary to the Panthers is Mitch Moses times 1.5 for Parramatta. They looked okay for like 15 minutes, maybe against the Storm when they took the foot off the throttle. But it wasn't the Panthers that we've come to know. Kurt Capewell comes up against Kieran. If the Panthers stay the same and Cleary is ruled out, he comes up against Adam Kieran, who is not a typical centre, was a 5'8" for the longest time, has played dummy half, has slotted into the halves this year, but is now filling in for an injury-ravaged backline there, and did his job last week, mind you. Kind of hard not to do your job when you're up against Wanga Blake, but anyways. The Roosters are just too strong. I think the Roosters are just too strong if they come up against a Nathan Cleary-less Panthers. The attacking organisation isn't there for Penrith, and Cleary's not there. Luai and Burton, yeah, they can do a job, but they're not Cleary. He's the premier halfback. He'll be would have been the Australian halfback at the World Cup. But we know where that's gone. No comment. So if Cleary comes in, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Mauve dropped and Burton goes out. Naden on the wing, not a fan of it, but it kind of is what it is. No Rob Jennings, no Brian Totter. I don't know if Jennings was injured or not. I think he may have been. So not overly sure about that. In terms of anytime try scorers, Copley goes over against Staines. I know Daniel hasn't played much, if any, first grade football this year, but last time he was at the Roosters, he did win the premiership with them, and he was a very serviceable player. I would not be surprised if he goes over against the Forbes Ferrari, who did squat diddly last week. Had more negative than positive. He's got to learn to run the ball, especially with Naden as his wing partner. Also, wouldn't be surprised if Tupanua goes over. The way he's been playing recently, I think I'm 2 for 2 in the last month with Tupanua tips. I'm hoping to get 3 for 3 with him here. He's just played superbly. It's that triple threat that the Roosters have on Tupanua's side. It's short ball Tupanua, walk play Tedesco, long ball Tupo, or long ball whoever's on the wing that week. How do you defend that? And I don't think you can feasibly defend all three at the same time and not have at least one of each go through each. Whether it's Tedesco back and running through and then going outside, or Tedesco out the back straight through himself, or the Walker loop, or Tupanua. So I'm going Tupanua there. Tedesco again. You can hammer that one off the bank if you really want to. If Penrith go over, I mean, they should. I think it's through Kurt Capewell. He's going up against Kieran. Like I said, he's serviceable. He's a good defender, but Capewell in centre from close range, he's pretty good. He's pretty good at club level at least. So that would be where I'd go to for a Panthers try. From what we've heard and from what I've heard, it's Cleary is named, but unlikely.
Yeah.
Based on that, I'm saying Roosters 13+. If you watch this and Cleary is named, I maintain my try scorer bet, but I would then hedge the Roosters bet and say either team 1 to 12. That would be where I go. It's a bit of a drop-out bet, but if Cleary plays, it's going to be a lot harder.
Yeah. Okay. With that, then, we will get to our next game. That is the Sea Eagles versus the Storm. For the Sea Eagles, no real changes to report with the exception of Kyle Lawton coming into the 15 shirt. Other than that, it's as you were for the Sea Eagles, even down to the reserves, which is Sully, Cust, Sirenen, and DeLuise. The Sea Eagles are making a real push. At the beginning of the season, they were struggling when they didn't have Trbojevic. Now sitting sixth with not a terrible run home, it's got to be said. You know, they are points clear. You know, they're 26 points, closest team to them. The Titans on 18. The Sea Eagles could be home and host for the finals at this point. As for the Storm, sitting pretty at the top, they've got a utility pack side this week. So the only change to their starting lineup is that Chris Lewis will replace Kafusi in the 11 shirt. And then down to the bench, it is Harry Grant in the 14, Jordan Grant in the 16, so plenty of utility there, Eisenhuth in the 15, and Pappenhausen in the 17, which traditionally teams that don't have a lot of forwards on the bench don't tend to do that well. You've got the two Grants who are traditionally they're rakes. They play in the 9 shirt. Jordan Grant, you saw it. He came in, had a few minutes, had a little bit of a run out there against the Panthers. You've now got Harry Grant in the 14. I'm not sure how you're going to use the two of them. Maybe Smith into the prop, bring Welsh and Bromwich out, and then Grant into the 14 and Harry Grant into the 9, and then Jordan Grant on at loose, maybe, or vice versa. But this Storm side, I still think wins, which is mental considering that their bench is just full of utility players. You got Eisenhuth is the only real out and out forward that you've got on your bench there, which is a big risk. And it's not as if they're short. You got John, Johns is a half, but you can play him at 13. You got Moiroa, who we're still yet to see come back. Very, very good forward. I still think Storm. I still think Storm 13 plus. The Seagulls, they are red hot. They're doing well. But I'm going Storm 13 plus. Is it a Storm side that saw off the Panthers last week convincingly? I don't see anyone stopping the Storm here. I really don't, and I don't think I think it'll be like another 30 points to it. Like a 30 points to 10, or a 36-12 or something like that. But I still see the Storm going 13 plus here. We've lost your audio. You've managed to mute yourself.
Hello. Yeah, is that better? That is better.
That's better.
Did you watch the Storm game last week?
I did.
So you would have seen that Nico Hines came off after about 30 minutes. Pappy came on. Jordan Grant was used as a prop forward. Brandon Smith was off after 53 minutes. Didn't come back.
I'm aware.
Some of this, I think, a little bit of this bench also hinges on Jerome Hughes, who came off with what was seemingly diagnosed as a calf strain, a very minor one at that. He put the kick up for Aramia's third try, I believe, and came straight off. So I think part of this is Hines is named at the 1, and if Hughes is ruled out, we see Nico go to the 7, or Munster go to the 7. Nico slots into the halves, Pappy off the bench into the 1. Harry and the Cheese will just keep going as is. There's no doubt about that. Tommy Eisenhuth, yes, he's a second rower by nature, but has been named and played in centre a couple of times this year and done so quite serviceably. Tom Eisenhuth to centre is like Chris Smith to 6. Oh, Chris Lewis, sorry. Does the job. Chris doesn't have to kick. Left it all to Munster and Hughes. But he just did the job. First receiver, gave it on. It's the same with Eisenhuth. Gets the ball, runs. Doesn't, he's not a ball-playing second rower. Or a ball-playing centre, sorry. I don't know about 13 plus. I really don't know about 13 plus. I am leaning. Oh, it's tough, isn't it? It's really, really tough. Justin Olam scores. Well, I'm going to put that one out there.
Okay.
Olam goes up against Brad Parker, and Olam's going to roll Brad Parker over. That's my guarantee try score better of the week, if I had to throw one up there. Looking at this Manly side, you could make an argument for Schuster against Lewis. Lewis, solid, but Schuster, his footwork gets him around. Chris Lewis, I believe. With a short ball, likely off Daly. Hard not to bet against Tommy Turbo as well. I'll just very quickly pull up that game's markets, but Manly currently are paying at $3.75. And Tom Trebojevic is paying at $2.10. You're not going to see Tom Trebojevic at $2.10 before a preliminary final again this year. That's just a bet. And Dino's going Manly 12. That's hard for an Eels fan to say. Dino. I know, mate. Trust me, mate. No.
Yeah.
Turbo Manly 1-12. Dino swung me.
Oh, okay. I'm going to stick with Storm 13 plus. I'm going to say, who am I going anytime? I'm feeling Go on, we're going Pappenhausen anytime. We're going to go Pappenhausen anytime. Trebojevic, maybe not. I think it's too easy of a call. I think Trebojevic is just guaranteed a try all the time. I think picking him's a bit of a cheat code now. So I'm going to go.
When he's over $2, you.
Absolutely. I'm going to go Pappenhausen anytime. I'm going to go Storm 13 plus, and I am going to go Seagulls less than 20 points. Race to 30 Storm, Seagulls less than 20. We're going big for this one.
We'll leave that there.
Let it hang. Right. I think we've talked over that one enough. And Bulldogs fans, strap yourself in. It is the Dogs versus the Tigers. The Dogs make a few changes to their spine. Meany is back to the one with Allen going back out to the wing. Then it is Hopoate, Shup, and Manu making up the remainder of the back line. Biondi Odo is in the 6 for the first time with Avarillo in the halves. Sio Manafanai comes from the bench to make a start in that 8 shirt with Hetherington going into the 10. Waddell, Elliott, and Jackson making up the remainder of the forwards with Marshall King in the 9. Then it is Katoa, Napa, Patolo, and Dory on the bench with the reserves Katoa, Stimson, Flanagan, and Topine. And then over to the Tigers, small changes for them. Mbai replaces the injured Dane Laurie at fullback with Norfoluma and Mamalo on the wings, with Chikam coming into the centre and Talau on the other side. Then it's as you were, with the exception of no Luke Garner this week. He's replaced by Blaw and Michele in the 13, offer Hangawe to the bench. And then it is Twal, Sini, and Talagi making up the remainder of the bench, with Simpkins, Amon, Madden, and Simpkin there as well. Bulldogs fans, cameras at the ready, please. I am about to say something that I very rarely say.
Don't.
The Bulldogs win this one. Right, we're tipping the Dogs this week. The Tigers were god awful. Every bit of logic that exists in the world dictate that the Tigers should have won that game. Now you're going to move Mbai back to 1, and you're going to have Chikam play centre for, I think, only the second time this season, with an out-of-form David Norfoluma on the wing. The Dogs... I wholeheartedly believe that the Dogs win this one. The margin I'm still undecided on. Yes, it's an unfamiliar halves pairing with Biondi Odo and Avarillo in the 6 and 7. But the Tigers have been so god-awful, I just can't look past it. Dean's going Dogs 13 plus. Me and Dean are on similar lines of logic. I'm going to go Dogs 1 to 12. I'm going to play it slightly less risky. I think that the Dogs, if you go off recent performances, the Dogs are the better side, which is weird to say because I literally never ever think that the Dogs are the better side for anything. The Tigers with Mbai at 1 fill me with zero confidence whatsoever. I'd have rather seen Dewey at the 1 and Mbai in the 7 with maybe Brooks in the 6. Their bench has absolutely no interchange power for me whatsoever. You've got Sini, who's by trade a centre and a winger. Okay, so potentially all you can do there is stick Sini in, pull Chikam out into the second row, or potentially just pull Chikam so you can put him back into the second row. Talagi comes in, offer Ngawe back to the bench as well. Michele's been playing okay. Leilua's fallen off a little bit. Blaw earns a starting spot, but I just have I can't look past the Dogs in this one. I'm going to go Dogs 1 to 12.
I reacted having not looked at the team lists.
That's a problem for you.
That is a problem. I looked at the team lists. I'm gonna I pose questions first before I give tips.
Okay.
You're answering these questions, by the way. So
Okay.
I've got three of them.
Okay.
Why, Dean? Go shush, Dean. I do. Why does Barrett keep changing his spine? Why does he persist with a hooker in the 14? Give me two reasons why I don't pick Tigers 13 plus.
Okay. So the reason that Barrett keeps on changing his spine is that he's yet to find a combination that actually truly works. I mean, you look to the last time that he had Avarillo in the squad, it was 24-4 against the Sharks and 24-32 against the Rabbitohs. Yes, those were losses, but they're losses against better sides than a 34-6 loss to the Titans.
Avarillo's been in the side all year.
Avarillo missed out last week. It was Flanagan in the 7. Flanagan was named at 7, I'm pretty sure.
Avarillo's been in the squad basically the whole year, though.
Avarillo has been in the squad, but they've not found the consistent house partner for him. So now they are trialing Biondi Odo, who's been that interchange out of the 14 shirt, who's looked good. He's looked quick. He's looked strong. He looks like someone who actually wants to be there. And there's not a lot of people that own dog shirts who actually want to be there, and that's sometimes the fans included. And because it's hard being a dog supporter. The reason that you don't go Tigers 13 plus is because we went Tigers 13 plus last week against a Warriors side that's heavily depleted, falling apart, couldn't even name 22 players, and still managed a loss. Yes, we've said that the Warriors are a better side, but the Tigers' last win was a 42-24 against the Broncos. Not even a Katoni Stags supercharged Broncos, just the Broncos. The Dogs look better as the weeks go on. Last week was a big step back for them. I mean, you look at they lost 66-0 to the Seagulls. Their last 5 is 66-0 loss against the Seagulls. Then it's a 22-16 loss against the Roosters, 32-24 against the Rabbitohs, 44-24 against the Sharks, and then 34-6 against the Titans. The Tigers played most of the teams that we've gone through there. They lost 66-16 against the Storm, 38-22 against the Rabbitohs. They won 42-24 against the Broncos, lost 44-24 against the Seagulls, and then 18-16 against the Warriors. I think that the Bulldogs steal this one. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. And I think that the loss of Laurie at the back will hinder the Tigers. I don't even think they'll get their coveted 9th spot this season at this rate. And that'll be a big loss for Tigers fans. And the Dogs... The Dogs want a 12 for me. Dogs want a 12. I'm going to say, who do I fancy for any time? I'm going to say Allen anytime. And then for the Tigers anytime, I'm going to say we're going to go Cheekham. I think because he probably gets plenty of minutes this week. So I'm going to say Cheekham. I'm going to say Allen, and I'm going to go Dogs 1-12, and I'm going to say that this one's going to be a low-scoring game. It's going to be like another 20 points to 16, or an 18-14, something like that.
Oh, I'm a Parramatta fan. I hate both of these sides. They both disgust me. Oh, who do I go? Oh, Dogs 1-12. Mamalo scores. Avarillo scores. Piss this game off.
Okay. I'm glad we agree on that one then.
I need to cleanse myself. Hang on. I need to cleanse myself. That's better.
No, it's not. It's really not. Dean, So still sticking with Dogs 13 plus. He's saying 26-8 for an exact score. Bold shout. Okay, can't say I'm mad at it. And then we will go to our final game of the week. It is the Titans versus the Cowboys. So the Titans, welcome back Patrick Herbert. He will slot into that 4 shirt. Taylor and Sexton are the halves again, with Rain in the 9, and then it's Wallace and Fotuaker in the forward with Proctor, Fafita, and Fasawa Malaawi. Got there eventually. In the 13 shirt, the Titans finding some consistency with their picks now. Clark comes in on the interchange. He'll be in the 14 shirt, so Ursan Masters drops out when it is Lasoni, Firma, and Jolliffe in the 15, 16, and 17, with Masters, McIntyre, Don, and Fogarty making up the remainder of the reserves. So just the one change there to the Titans starting lineup. As for the Cowboys, a few more changes. Holmes is back in the 1, which means that Granville is demoted to the 17 shirt. Lemuelu is moved to the left centre, and Hampton comes in on the right. So he's moved there from the interchange. And then it is Gilbert and McLean in the props, with Robson in the 9. Taumalolo in the second row. We'll get on to that one. I want to talk about this one.
Wait, what?
Taumalolo in the 11 shirt. Lukey in the 12 and Hess in the 13. Then it is Mitch Dunn, Condon, Burr, and Granville on the bench, with Molo, Arce, Holler, and Wright on the reserves. Right then, before we descend into absolute anarchy, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Taumalolo in the 11 shirt. Taumalolo's been put in that shirt simply to negate the effects of David Fafita. Hess has been put in the 13 to try and make up the meters that Taumalolo would have put in if you had that big mobile unit of an armoured tank just trundling up the middle. But Cohen Hess is not Jason Taumalolo. Cohen Hess at the minute arguably is not Cohen Hess. You roll the clock back 2, maybe 3 seasons, Cohen Hess is shades of Cohen Hess. And he's not playing fantastic. So putting him in a new position, the prop spot works for him. The prop spot worked. It seemed to have stopped working. And now they've decided that they'll stick him in a 13 jersey and hope that that works. And put Taumalolo into the second row to try and negate the effects of that big edge that features Patty Herbert and David Fafita. I can see why they've done it, but I can't see it working. Fafita is too nimble. He's powerful, but he's got strong ability to change direction. Taumalolo, we've seen, is just a straightforward up the guts. Not much of a step to him, just power and go. Lukey in the 12 does not fill me with a great deal of confidence either. He's been used mainly as an interchange and a reserve, but now has been bumped into a starting shirt. Meanwhile, you've got Molo, who has got to be said, not really done much wrong this season, but just can't seem to get game time. Dayan Arce, exactly the same, can't get game time. Peter Holler, Shane Wright, again, they're just players at this point. Titans 13 plus. David Fafita to score 2 tries. And Mazu to get 1 is where I jump straight to this one.
Sorry, I need to take this off. Parramatta Eels are choking like usual. How is it that a Queensland origin rep, who was likely one of their better forwards in game 2 and 3, can't get a game at club level? I don't get that. I don't. Just toddy boy. Don't know what you're doing, son, but you're making Peter Hannay look like a bit of a better coach. Oh, Joshy Hannay, sorry. Not Peter Hannay. Would much prefer to have Frankie Molo in the 13 there if you're going to put Lolo in at 11. Much prefer that. Lockie Burr, not been great for them. Man, I don't know. And we got to think about this as well. The last 2 weeks, Fafita has been named in the starting side and benched. Bo Fermor starts, takes Fafita's left-hand side. Fafita comes on and plays right. So realistically, Jason Taumalolo is going to be sitting there for 20 minutes, twiddling his you-know-what, because Bo Fermor's not bloody David Fafita. You can make that change if you think Lolo's going to play 80. Completely agree, Dino. It's going to be like smashy overs. Smashy overs. The interesting thing for me that came out of last week was that the Titans straight up said Ash Taylor has his spot set for the rest of the season. It's between Toby Sexton and Jamal Fogarty for the number 7. Which makes me quite upset because I love a little bit of sexy time. But Fogarty's too good to not be in there. Ash Taylor probably had his best game in the Titans uniform last week. But you can't drop sexy time. This is just the thing now, Matt.
Okay, it's a thing apparently.
It is a thing. Curious to see how they use Aaron Clark. Yeah, he doesn't have the same versatility as that of a Tyrone Peachy, who's not there this week. He's just out. Yeah, he's got a 1-week ban. Paddy Herbert comes in for Masters. Masters did a more than serviceable job last week. Joining you on Greggy Boy. Love a little bit of Greg. Can't believe the Parramatta Eels didn't have him in the squad a couple of years ago, but he's killing it now for the Titans. Titans 13+. Greggy Boy, he goes over. I wouldn't be surprised if Mo Fodawaker got over for a try. And just because I can, just because I want to see the look, anytime for the sexy boy, Toby Sexton. He goes in. Sexy boy gets in, gets a try. Titans 13+.
Okay. Well, we are unanimous on Titans 13+. I agree. Back the over. I think David Fafita gets 2. I think Mazu going up against the combination of Hampton and Talagi. Bags 1 there at least. So yeah, that's where we go on that one. But that is it. We are fresh out of games. You have survived way longer with us than people care to spend time with us. So thank you for joining us. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Let us know if you did, and join us next Tuesday as we will go through yet more team lists, yet more team news, and yet more terrible picks for you guys to go through. But
hang on. Whoa. Before we do go though, I reckon it depends on a couple of things, but I reckon this whole charity thing might be a go for the rest of the season. So, Dino, it's you and I this week, mate. If the bunnies get up, then you're dropping $50 to be on blue. If our Parramatta Eels get up, I'm dropping $50 to House with No Steps. For anyone that does watch this and wants to jump on, be it a donation for this week to either of those 2 charities, or if they want to take me on next week, let us know. Drop us a line, drop us a message. Tune in next week. I'll put the money where the mouth is for charity. Let's do it.
Okay. If anyone would like to sponsor this segment as well, go for it. Like, more than happy. We'll put some money towards it and see what we can do in regards to that. But Dean's keen now. But no, thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you same time next week for yet more team lists and more team news. We'll see you then, and thank you for joining us.